90-degree back end. We want to pull up about 1.5 car widths out from the cones. If you pull up too close, it makes it more tricky than it needs to be. Okay, we're going to focus on that cone right there. We'll call that the pivot cone because we're going to try to pivot the car right around that cone. There's 2 cones over there. There's our pivot cone. We'll pull forward until it's in our back window. Now the closer we are into these cones, the further forward we'll have to pull. The further out we are, the less far forward. And it just takes some practice, and every car is a little different. I'm going to put that pivot cone right there from this distance out in this car. All right, we're going to put it in reverse, turn all the way to the right. For this attempt, we're going to use the backup camera. That's our pivot cone right there. And we're going to use this yellow line, just keep it right inside of that pivot cone. The yellow line describes where our car is going to go, so we'll just keep that right inside of the pivot cone. Okay, I'm backing up. Now, notice we're going to be too close to that pivot cone with that yellow line, so I'm going to let out a little steering to the left and move it over like that. All right, we'll stop right there. We can see these yellow lines are nice and centered between the cones. So what we'll do, leave the steering wheel right where it is. We'll forget about the camera and we'll look over to this mirror over here. And we're gonna back up now, nice and slowly, until the side of the car lines up with the parking space line. And take it nice and easy and get it just right, just like that. You can see where the side of the car and that line of the parking space are lined up, nice and parallel with one another. Great, so at that point, we'll straighten out our wheels, and you can simply drive straight down that line, or if you're using the camera, aim for the middle with the yellow lines, put that red line right on the curb like that, and that's it. One of 3 things can happen when you're backing in with respect to the pivot cone. One, okay, we get set up, we turn all the way to the right, and you come in and you pivot right around it about a foot out. Great, you just keep that steering all the way to the right, watching this mirror until your car's lined up, straighten out your wheels, back in. A second of 3 possibilities is you're here, you turn all the way right, you're coming back, and you're going to be very close to or even hit the pivot cone, in which case you'll let out some of that steering to the left. That'll move the back end over that way. And the third and final possibility is you're out here, turn all the way to the right, and you're actually quite far from the pivot cone. In this case, we're going to hit or be too close to this cone on this side. You'll see the stick for this cone in this rear view mirror at that point. Stop about here, turn all the way left, put it in drive, and pull forward. And you'll look, same as before, you'll look in this side mirror over here for the side of the car to line up with the parking space line, and then back it straight in. On the test, if you hit a cone, unfortunately that's a fail. So if you have any doubt that you might hit over here or be really close, don't risk it. Just pull forward to the left, and that you won't even lose. That's allowed for. You won't lose any points. All right. Here's an example of the 90-degree back in without the camera. You might not have a camera. On the road test, we can use the camera, but they don't want us staring at it exclusively. There's our pivot cone. I'm going to stop right about there. Okay. To do this without the camera, we want this mirror lowered. So I did just lower that. And that way we'll be able to see the pivot cone in it as we're coming around. All right, we'll put it in reverse, turn all the way to the right, and we're looking at the pivot cone over our shoulder as we start backing up because we can't see it anywhere else. And with practice, you learn, that feels pretty good to me. I might let out a little steering to the left, just a little bit, because I felt like we were going to be too close to it. Now, this mirror is going to tell the tale. We'll be able to drive right around it. There we go. There, I'm holding the steering perfectly still. We're going right around that pivot cone, and we're looking for the side of the car to line up with that line, just like that. And now, we'll straighten out our wheels, and we'll drive right down that line. There we go. That's how you do it old school without the camera. You just need to lower that mirror, and that's when the pivot cone really becomes relevant, and that's the one cone we can really see during the whole maneuver. And we'll throw it in park. You can use your camera on the test, but they don't want you staring at it exclusively. So what I suggest on the test is you do what I call a hybrid. You're doing what we basically just did, but then also peeking at the camera. And keep your head on a swivel, be looking around. And true enough, always when in reverse, you want to be looking outside the car, looking around to be paranoid and make sure you're not going to hit anything. A final example for the 90-degree back in. This is what to do when we were actually quite far from the pivot cone. And basically this comes from not pulling forward far enough, and how to fix that. So in reverse, all the way to the right, we're looking at that pivot cone over our shoulder, and we can sense we're really going to be far from that thing. And we look at the camera, sure enough we can tell by the yellow line on this side over here we're going to be quite close to that, and we might clear it, but like we said, we don't want to risk it. We're really far from that pivot cone, and we're quite close to the other one. The stick is showing up in the rearview mirror. I kind of can't show you because that'll just show my camera. It'll get in the way. But what we're going to do here, we're going to turn all the way to the left. We're not losing any points on the road test for this. Put it in drive. We're going to pull forward until the side of the car is lined up with the parking space. Very often it'll just line up perfectly. That almost did. And then we'll put it in reverse, straighten out the wheels, and back straight in. Or you might need to adjust a little bit. I just turn the steering wheel slightly to the left and now back slightly to the right. In reverse, steering is very sensitive. You're going to oversteer at first, it's called, and that's when you turn the steering wheel more than you need to. All right, we'll put it in park and call that done. Good luck.